There was once a farmer who lived in a small village far away from the noise of the city. His house was old and built with mud walls. His clothes were simple and worn out, but his heart was full of honesty and hard work. Every day he would wake up early before the sun even rose and step out into the cold morning air. He had no wealth, no machines, no big lands. The only thing he truly owned was a strong horse that stood by his side like a loyal friend. This horse was not just an animal for him. It was his strength, his hope, and his partner in every struggle. When the farmer had to plow the fields, it was the horse that pulled the plow. When he needed to carry heavy sacks of grain to the market, it was the horse that walked beside him patiently. When he felt tired and lonely, he would sit near the horse, gently pat its neck, and feel like he was not alone in this world. The villagers knew the farmer was poor. They often saw him working from sunrise to sunset, sweating in the fields while the horse pulled with all its might. Some villagers respected his hard work, but others laughed at his poverty. They said he had nothing. They said he was wasting his life. But the farmer never argued, he only smiled, because he knew that as long as his horse was with him, he could survive. Life was never easy for him. He earned just enough to buy food for his family and a little grain for the horse. Sometimes there was no proper meal at home. Sometimes he had to borrow a little flour or rice from neighbors. But no matter how hard things became, he always made sure his horse was fed, because in his heart he knew if the horse stayed strong, then the farm would stay alive too. The farmer often remembered the days when he had more animals. Once he had 2 cows and even a pair of oxen, but slowly, one by one, he lost them all due to sickness and poverty. Now only this one horse remained, the last hope, the last treasure he could call his own. He would whisper to it softly, saying, "As long as you and I are together, we will keep fighting. We will not give up." Every morning, children in the village would see the farmer walking with the horse, its hooves making soft thuds on the dusty road. Sometimes the farmer would share half of his bread with the horse, chewing slowly and feeding it bite by bite. It looked strange to some people, but to him it was natural, because he treated the horse not as property but as family. Seasons passed, and the farmer kept working hard in the summer heat. He worked while sweat dripped down his forehead. In the winter cold, he worked while his hands shivered. And in the rainy season, when the mud made it hard to move, he and the horse still stood together, trying to save every crop. Sometimes nature was cruel. The rain destroyed his harvest, or the sun burned his fields, but no matter what happened, the farmer refused to abandon hope. He said to himself, "Tomorrow will be better. As long as I have my horse, tomorrow will be better." But deep inside his heart, he also feared something. He feared the day someone might take away his horse, because debts were piling up. He had borrowed money to buy seeds. He had borrowed money to fix his roof, and the people he owed were not always kind. They wanted payment on time, and if he failed, they threatened to take whatever he had left. Every night when the farmer lay on his bed, he would hear the gentle breathing of the horse outside his hut. It gave him comfort, but also sadness. He knew that if this horse was taken away, his life would be broken into pieces. He could lose his land, he could lose his income, but losing the horse would mean losing his very spirit. He often closed his eyes and prayed, asking for mercy, asking for just one more chance to protect his only companion. The villagers sometimes wondered why the farmer looked so tired yet never gave up. The answer was simple. He was holding on for the sake of his horse, and the horse, in return, gave him the strength to wake up every morning. It was not just about farming anymore. It was about survival. It was about dignity, and it was about love. So this poor farmer, with nothing in his pocket and everything on his shoulders, lived each day with one hope, that his last horse would never be taken from him, that no matter how cruel life became, he and his horse would stand together against the storm. One afternoon, the farmer was sitting under a tree after a long day in the fields. His horse stood nearby, tired but loyal. The sun was setting and the sky was painted orange. He was quietly thanking God for giving him another day of survival, but at the same time he was worried, because he knew the debts on his shoulders were too heavy. He had borrowed money for seeds, for tools, and sometimes even for food, and the people who gave him money were not patient or kind. That evening, the sound of heavy boots came down the village path. A wealthy landowner and his men appeared. Their clothes were neat, their shoes shiny, and their voices loud. They walked straight to the farmer. The landowner smiled, but it was not the smile of a friend. It was the smile of someone who knew he had power. He looked at the horse, then at the farmer, and finally spoke. "You owe me money," he said firmly. "You have delayed for too long. Now I will take something in return." The farmer's heart sank. He stood up quickly, his hands shaking. He knew what the man wanted even before he said it. The landowner pointed at the horse and declared, "This animal will be mine. From today it belongs to me." The farmer felt like the ground under his feet had broken apart. His eyes widened in shock. His chest became heavy. He quickly stepped in front of the horse as if to shield it from the men. With trembling words he said, "Please, not the horse. Take anything else but not the horse. This is all I have left. Without it my land is useless." "My life is useless," the landowner laughed cruelly. "Do you think your begging can change the rules? Debt must be paid. If you cannot pay with money, then you pay with what you own. And this horse is the only thing you have worth taking." His men also laughed, their voices echoing through the village street. Some neighbors peeked out from their doors, whispering to each other. Some pitied the farmer, some shook their heads, but none dared to come forward. They all knew the landowner was powerful. Nobody wanted to be his enemy, so they only watched silently as the poor farmer's world was about to fall apart. The farmer's eyes filled with tears, but he refused to move. He kept his hand on the horse's neck, his body shaking but his heart firm. He said again, "Without this horse I cannot plow. Without this horse I cannot eat. Without this horse I cannot live. Please give me some more time. I promise I will pay back every coin." His voice cracked like dry wood in fire, but the landowner remained cold. The horse neighed softly, as if it understood the danger. It stepped closer to the farmer, its warm breath touching his arm. The farmer felt the bond between them stronger than ever. This was not just about losing an animal. It was about losing a partner, a friend, the only being that never judged him and never abandoned him. But the landowner grew impatient. He ordered his men, "Take the horse away." The farmer tried to resist. He held onto the rope, his knuckles turning white. But the men were stronger. They pushed him aside. The farmer stumbled to the ground, his knees hitting the dirt. Still he crawled forward, grabbing the landowner's feet, begging once more, "Please, I will work day and night, I will do anything. But let me keep my horse." The landowner looked down at him with no mercy. "Enough begging, you are too weak to pay. Too poor to fight. This horse is mine now." His words struck the farmer like arrows, sharp and merciless. The villagers who were watching could feel the pain. Some whispered that it was unfair. Some said the farmer had worked harder than anyone else, but still no one moved. Fear had tied their hands and shut their mouths. The farmer's cries grew weaker. He felt as though his spirit was breaking. He wondered how he would face tomorrow without his horse, how he would plow the soil, how he would carry food, how he would even feed his children. The horse pulled against the men, refusing to walk away easily, its eyes wide with confusion, its body resisting the ropes. It looked back at the farmer, who was now on the ground, tears rolling down his dusty face. The scene was heartbreaking. A man and his horse separated not by nature, not by fate, but by cruelty and greed. The sun had almost disappeared now. Darkness spread over the village, and with it the shadow of despair fell upon the farmer's life. He knew the fight was slipping away from his hands. He was just one man against many. His strength was no match for theirs. Yet inside his heart he still whispered one last prayer. Maybe a miracle would happen. Maybe someone kind would step in before it was too late. The night had been long and painful for the poor farmer. He barely slept. His mind was filled with fear that his last horse would be taken away. He kept turning on his bed, listening to the sound of the horse breathing outside. Every breath from the animal gave him comfort, but also reminded him of what he stood to lose. When the morning finally came, he dragged himself out of bed, his body heavy, his heart even heavier. He looked at the horse and whispered, "Stay with me, I will find a way. I promise." That day was unlike any other. The village was buzzing with activity, people moving quickly because a film crew had arrived in the area. It was not something that happened often. Trucks, cameras, and strangers filled the small roads. The villagers stood at a distance, curious to see what was happening. Children laughed and pointed, while elders shook their heads, saying it would disturb the peace of their quiet land. The farmer did not care much. His world was too dark for excitement, but fate was quietly working. Among the visitors was a man known across the world, a man of humble nature despite his fame. It was Keanu Reeves, dressed simply without showing any pride. He blended among the people as if he belonged. He was in the village because of a small film project, and unlike many stars, he liked to walk alone, to feel the real life of the people around him. As Keanu walked down the narrow path, he noticed the farmer sitting on a stone by the roadside. The farmer's shoulders were bent. His face looked tired, his hands rough and dusty. Beside him stood the horse tied loosely, its eyes calm but alert. Something about this picture caught Keanu's heart. It was not just a man with an animal, it was something deeper. A silent bond, a silent cry for help. Keanu slowed his steps, his eyes soft with curiosity. He greeted the farmer with a gentle nod. The farmer looked up in surprise. He did not know who Keanu was. He only saw a stranger with kind eyes. Keanu asked softly, "Are you all right, my friend?" "You seem troubled," the farmer hesitated, ashamed of his poverty, ashamed of his tears. But when he looked into Keanu's eyes, he saw no judgment, only concern, and so he decided to speak. The farmer told him about the horse, how it was not just an animal but his only hope. He spoke about the debts, about the cruel landowner who wanted to take the horse away. His voice shook as he described the threats. His words came slowly, almost broken, but every word was filled with pain. Keanu listened carefully, not interrupting. His face calm but his heart heavy. He could feel the weight of the farmer's sorrow. The horse neighed softly as if adding its own voice to the story. Keanu reached out and gently touched its mane, feeling the strength and gentleness of the creature. He could see the truth in the farmer's words. He could see the love between man and horse. It was not just about money, it was about survival, about dignity, about a life built on hard work. The farmer wiped his eyes and whispered, "I have nothing left. If I lose this horse, I lose everything. I cannot fight them, I cannot pay them, I don't know what to do." Keanu felt silence around them, even though the village noises were still there. In that moment it was just the farmer, the horse, and him, three souls bound together by fate. Keanu sat beside the farmer on the stone, not caring that his clothes would gather dust. He spoke with a gentle voice. "Sometimes life is unfair. Sometimes people use power without mercy. But there is always hope, my friend. Tell me how much you owe. Maybe there is a way." The farmer shook his head. "It is too much for me, sir, for a poor man like me." "It is impossible." His eyes looked away, ashamed of even speaking the amount, but Keanu did not move. His patience was like a calm river. He repeated softly, "Tell me." The farmer finally whispered the number, his voice barely audible, expecting the stranger to laugh or walk away. But Keanu did not laugh. Instead, his expression grew even softer. He nodded slowly, as if the decision was already made inside his heart. The farmer looked at him confused. "Why are you listening to me? Why do you care? You don't even know me." His voice was trembling. Keanu simply smiled and said, "Because kindness is not about knowing someone. Kindness is about being human, and today you need someone by your side." At that moment, the farmer felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. His chest loosened, his eyes widened. He could not believe that a stranger, a man he had just met, was willing to stand beside him. The horse too seemed calmer, leaning its head closer to Keanu as if recognizing his gentle soul. The encounter was simple, just a few words on a dusty road. But for the farmer it was like a light breaking through the darkness. He did not know yet what Keanu would do, but he felt deep in his heart that this meeting was no accident. It was fate, a chance, maybe even a miracle. The sun was dipping low when the farmer finished telling his painful story. The village road was quiet now. Only a few children ran in the distance, and the sound of the horses' breathing filled the air. Keanu looked at the farmer with calm eyes. He had heard every word, every tear, every sigh, and in his heart he knew he could not leave things as they were. The farmer wiped his face with the edge of his worn cloth, ashamed of showing his weakness. "Forgive me, sir," he whispered. "I have troubled you with my sadness, but there is nothing anyone can do. The landowner will take what he wants. He has money, he has power, and I am just a poor man with nothing." His voice broke, and his hand rested on the horse's mane as if clinging to the last thread of hope. Keanu remained silent for a moment, then he stood up, brushing the dust from his clothes. His tall frame cast a shadow across the ground. He stepped closer to the farmer and spoke with quiet strength. "You are wrong, my friend. Something can be done. And it will be done." The farmer blinked in disbelief, unable to understand the meaning of those words. Just then, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed again. The landowner appeared at the end of the road, his men following like dark clouds. He had come back to claim the horse, his eyes sharp with greed, his voice loud as he called out, "Time is over, farmer. Your begging is useless. Today this horse is mine," he pointed arrogantly. His men stepped forward with ropes ready to drag the animal away. The farmer's heart froze, his legs trembled. He wanted to fight, but he knew his strength was nothing against theirs. He lowered his head, ready to see his worst nightmare come true. But Keanu stepped forward, his eyes locked on the landowner. His voice calm but firm. "Wait," he said. "This horse is not yours to take. The men stopped. Surprised by the stranger's confidence, the landowner frowned. "And who are you to speak in this matter? This is between me and this poor man. You are an outsider. Stay out of it." His tone was sharp, his pride wounded by the interruption. But Keanu did not move, his face was steady. His hands resting calmly by his side, he spoke again. "The farmer owes you money, yes. But debts can be paid in more than one way. How much is it? Tell me now." His voice carried such authority that even the villagers hiding behind their doors leaned forward to listen. The landowner laughed. "Do you even know what you are saying? This poor man cannot pay. That is why I am taking the horse." "Why do you care?" But Keanu's eyes did not waver. "I asked you how much," he repeated, his voice as steady as stone. The landowner hesitated, then named the amount loudly, thinking it would scare the stranger away. It was not a small number. For the farmer it was impossible, but for Keanu it was not beyond reach. He nodded slowly and said, "Very well, I will pay it. Right here, right now, but the horse stays with the farmer." The crowd gasped. Whispers spread like fire through the village. Nobody had expected such words. The farmer looked at Keanu with wide eyes, his lips trembling. "No. No, sir, you cannot. This is my burden, not yours. You do not even know me." His voice shook with shame and gratitude, but Keanu raised his hand gently to stop him. "Do not worry. Sometimes help comes when you least expect it, and kindness does not need a reason." The landowner's face turned red. He was not used to being challenged. "Why would you pay for him? He is nothing, his life is worthless, his horse is worthless," he sneered. But Keanu stepped closer, his voice sharper now. "No life is worthless, no man is nothing, and no kindness is wasted. You will take the money and you will leave this man and his horse in peace." His tone carried weight. His eyes flashed with quiet power. The men behind the landowner shifted uncomfortably. Even they felt the strength in Keanu's words. The landowner, cornered and humiliated, finally nodded, though his pride was wounded. He reached out his hand for the money. Keanu calmly took out what was needed, counted it carefully, and placed it in the landowner's hand, his movements firm, his eyes never leaving the man's face. "Now the debt is clear," he said, "and this horse belongs to no one but the farmer. Remember that," the landowner muttered under his breath, stuffed the money into his pocket, and walked away quickly, his men following. The villagers slowly came out of their homes, murmuring in astonishment, their eyes wide with admiration. The farmer, however, could not move. His knees buckled and he fell to the ground. Tears flowing freely, he looked up at Keanu, his voice broken. Why would you do this for me? I am just a poor man. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Keanu knelt beside him, placed a hand gently on his shoulder and said, "Because kindness is the only debt worth carrying, because justice should not be bought with cruelty, and because today it was the right thing to do." The horse neighed loudly, almost as if it understood it had been saved. It stepped forward and nuzzled Keanu's arm. The farmer wept harder, holding on to the horse, whispering words of thanks that his mouth could barely form. The villagers clapped softly, their respect for the stranger growing with every heartbeat. For the farmer, it was a moment beyond belief. In one single act, Keanu had given him back his hope, his dignity, and his future. The act of kindness was simple but powerful, a shield against greed, a light in the darkness, a proof that justice still lived in the world. The landowner and his men had left, but the silence they left behind was quickly filled with something new. It was not fear anymore, it was relief, it was hope. The villagers slowly stepped out of their homes, some carrying lanterns, some still rubbing their eyes in disbelief. They had all seen what had happened, and they could hardly believe their eyes. The farmer was still on his knees, his hands resting on the horse's neck, his tears falling into the dusty road. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," over and over, his words broken but his heart overflowing. He looked at Keanu, unable to speak properly, because no words could carry the weight of his gratitude. Keanu only smiled softly, his eyes calm. He did not stand tall like a hero waiting for praise. He did not boast about what he had done. He stood humbly, as if his actions were nothing special, as if kindness was the most natural thing in the world. His silence carried more power than any speech. The villagers gathered closer, their faces glowing in the dim evening light. One old man placed his hand on the farmer's shoulder and said, "You are lucky, my friend. Not everyone meets such a soul in their lifetime." Another woman wiped her tears and whispered, "God himself must have sent this man here." Children clapped their hands, their voices filled with joy. The farmer tried to stand, but his legs trembled. He held Keanu's hand and kissed it, a gesture of pure respect and love. But Keanu gently pulled his hand away and said quietly, "No, my friend, do not bow to me. Keep your dignity, I only gave what I could. The strength was always yours." His words were gentle, but they struck the farmer's heart like lightning, filling him with a pride he thought he had lost. The horse neighed loudly, shaking its mane, as if celebrating its freedom. The farmer hugged its neck tightly, his tears soaking into its hair. "You are safe, my friend," he whispered to the animal. "We will not be parted, not now, not ever." The horse pressed its head against his chest, and the villagers smiled at the sight. One of the young boys ran forward and asked Keanu, "Sir, why did you help him? You could have walked away. Nobody would blame you." Keanu bent down to the boy's level and smiled. "Because if we walk away when someone is suffering, we lose a piece of our own humanity. We all have the power to help, sometimes with money, sometimes with time, sometimes with just a kind word, and when we use that power, we make the world a little better." The boy's eyes shone with wonder. He nodded slowly as if the words had planted a seed in his young heart. The villagers murmured again, repeating Keanu's words among themselves, their respect for him growing deeper with every moment. The farmer, still overwhelmed, finally spoke through his tears. "You saved my life today. You saved my family. You saved my honor. I can never repay you. I can only pray that God blesses you wherever you go." His voice shook, but his sincerity touched everyone around. Keanu placed a hand on the farmer's shoulder again, his voice calm. "There is nothing to repay. Just take care of your horse, take care of your family, and when one day you see another person in need, remember this moment and do what you can. That will be repayment enough." The farmer nodded, his tears still falling. But this time they were not tears of fear. They were tears of joy, tears of relief. His heart, which had been heavy like stone, now felt as light as air. He could finally breathe again. The villagers began to cheer softly, clapping their hands, calling Keanu a man of honor. Some women offered him water. Some men offered him a seat, but he politely shook his head. He did not want to be treated like a king. He wanted to be treated like a human, equal to everyone else. His humility only deepened their admiration. The farmer's children ran out from the hut, their small feet kicking up dust. They hugged their father tightly and then turned to the horse, their laughter filling the air. They had feared losing it forever, but now they were free to dream again. The horse lowered its head gently so the children could touch its mane. It was as if it too understood the gift it had been given. The farmer looked at Keanu again, his heart aching with gratitude. "You came here like a stranger," he said softly, "but you will leave as my brother." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of truth. The villagers nodded, agreeing, for they all felt the same. Keanu gave one last smile, quiet and warm. He did not ask for thanks, he did not ask for recognition. He simply looked at the farmer and the horse, standing together, safe and free, and that was enough for him. That night the story spread quickly through the village. From one house to another, from one voice to another, everyone spoke of the stranger who stepped in with kindness and justice. The farmer could not sleep, but this time it was not because of fear, it was because of joy. He lay awake, his heart full, whispering prayers of thanks. Knowing his life had been forever changed, the evening air was calm. The stars began to appear one by one in the darkening sky. The villagers had gone back to their homes, but the story of what happened still echoed in every corner. Children were whispering about the stranger who saved the farmer. Elders were shaking their heads in wonder, and mothers were telling their little ones that kindness still existed in the world. But for the farmer, the night was not just about stories. It was about something much deeper. It was about a bond that had grown stronger, a bond between him, his horse, and the man who stood by them after the crowd faded away. Keanu remained with the farmer for a little while. He was not in a hurry to leave. He did not act like a hero who wanted applause. He sat quietly near the horse, his hand gently brushing its mane. The horse stood calmly beside him as if it trusted him completely. The farmer watched this with tears still in his eyes. It amazed him how quickly the animal had accepted the stranger, as if the horse itself knew that this man carried no harm, only kindness. The farmer sat on the ground, his children beside him, their small hands still clutching the horse's rope. He spoke softly. "I do not know how to thank you. You saved us when nobody else dared to stand up. You gave me back my life, my hope, my dignity. Keanu shook his head gently, his eyes kind but firm. Do not thank me, my friend. Just promise me one thing, take care of your horse. Because this animal is not just your strength, it is your partner. It has carried your burdens without complaint, and now it deserves your love more than ever. The farmer nodded quickly. I will. I swear on my life this horse is part of my family. I will protect it until my last breath. His voice was steady now, filled with determination. For the first time in many months he felt strong again. The weight of helplessness was gone. In its place was pride and courage. Keanu smiled softly, then looked at the children. And you, little ones, you must grow with the same kindness your father carries in his heart. One day you will be the strength he leans on. And one day, you too will meet someone in need. When that day comes, remember this moment, and do what is right. The children nodded, their eyes wide with wonder, his words sinking deep into their young hearts like seeds that would grow for years to come. The night grew colder, but none of them seemed to notice. They sat together, a poor farmer, his family, his loyal horse, and a stranger who felt like family already. They shared simple food, just bread and a little milk. But it tasted better than any feast because it was eaten with gratitude and respect. The farmer's wife served it with trembling hands, still unable to believe that this man had given them back everything they had feared to lose. Keanu ate humbly. Speaking little, he listened more than he talked. He asked about the village, about the crops, about the lives of the people. He wanted to know them, to understand them. He did not act like an outsider who looked down on the poor. He acted like a brother, sitting among equals. The farmer's heart grew lighter with every passing moment. He realized that this bond was not just about saving the horse, it was about respect. Keanu had not only given him help, he had given him dignity, something the landowner tried to crush. The farmer looked at him with quiet admiration. You may leave tomorrow, you may never return, but I will remember this day until my last breath. I will tell my children, and they will tell theirs, that once a kind man came to our village and showed us the true meaning of humanity. Keanu's eyes softened. He said nothing, but the silence between them was filled with meaning. The horse neighed gently, pressing its head against the farmer's arm, then turning and brushing its nose against Keanu's shoulder. It was as if the animal too wanted to give thanks. The stars above shone brighter. The night seemed warmer. The village seemed safer. The farmer no longer felt like a man crushed by fate. He felt like a man reborn, and all because one stranger had chosen kindness instead of silence, courage instead of indifference. When it was finally time for Keanu to leave, the farmer stood with him at the edge of the path, his voice low but steady. You came here as a stranger, but you leave as my brother. May your road always be blessed. May your heart always stay as pure as it is tonight. His children waved, their voices carrying into the night. The horse whinnied, as if to say goodbye in its own language. Keanu raised his hand in farewell. His smile gentle, he walked away quietly, without noise, without pride, just as humbly as he had arrived, but in his steps. The farmer felt something holy, something noble. He knew he had witnessed not just an act of kindness, but the forming of a bond of respect that would live forever in his heart. As the farmer turned back to his home, the horse walking faithfully beside him, he whispered softly, We are safe now, my friend, and we are not alone. The world still has good souls. His tears flowed again, but this time they were tears of joy, tears of peace. The night that began in despair ended in hope. And the bond between man, horse, and stranger became a story that would never be forgotten. The night passed slowly, but for the farmer it was a night filled with peace. He lay on his bed and listened to the quiet breathing of his horse outside. Every sound was a blessing now. Every moment was proof that his worst fear had been defeated. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of thanks, his lips trembling with gratitude, his heart lighter than it had been in years by morning. The story had already spread across the village. Neighbors came to visit. Some brought small gifts. Some just came to hear the tale again from the farmer himself. They all wanted to confirm what they had seen with their own eyes, that a stranger had stood up against cruelty and saved a poor man's last hope. Their voices carried the story farther, to nearby villages, to travelers passing by, until it became something larger than just one night. The farmer told the story simply, without adding anything extra. He spoke of his despair, of the landowner's threats, of the moment he thought his life was over, and then he spoke of the kindness of a man he had never met before, a man who gave without asking, who helped without pride. His words touched everyone who heard them, because it was not just a tale of money and debt, it was a tale of humanity. Keanu, meanwhile, tried to leave quietly. He did not want attention. He did not want to be praised. He simply packed his things, thanked the villagers for their hospitality, and prepared to continue his journey. But no matter how softly he walked, people noticed, children followed him, elders stopped him. They wanted to see him one more time, to say thank you, to show respect. His presence had become a symbol of hope. The farmer stood at the edge of the road with his horse beside him, his eyes shining with tears once more. "I will never forget what you did," he said, his voice steady. "This horse will live and work with me until my last breath, and every time I look at it I will remember you." Keanu smiled gently, resting his hand on the horse's mane one last time. "Take care of him and he will take care of you. That is how bonds are built, with love and respect." The villagers nodded, their hearts moved. They understood they were witnessing more than just a farewell. They were witnessing the kind of moment that becomes a legend, a story passed down through generations, a story told to children so they may grow up believing in kindness. As Keanu walked away, the farmer's children ran after him, their voices calling, "Come back one day. Come back." He turned, waved, and smiled, his figure slowly disappearing down the dusty road. But in the hearts of those who watched, he never truly left. His kindness stayed behind. Like a flame burning quietly in the dark, the farmer returned home with his horse. But everything felt different now. The burden of fear was gone. He worked in his fields with new strength. He plowed the soil with renewed hope. Every time the horse pulled the plow, he whispered, "We are free, my friend, we are free." His children played around, their laughter carrying across the fields. His wife smiled more often, and even the neighbors treated him with new respect. Weeks turned into months, and the story continued to grow. People from other villages came to see the farmer and his horse. They wanted to hear the tale from his own lips, and each time he told it, his eyes filled with tears. But they were tears of joy, of pride, of gratitude. Some said it was luck, some said it was fate. But the farmer believed it was more than that. He believed it was justice. Justice delivered not by power or wealth, but by kindness. A kind of justice that the world often forgets, but never truly loses. He knew that as long as people like Keanu existed, there was hope for humanity. The horse grew stronger too, as if it understood that it had been saved. Its steps were firmer, its eyes brighter when it ran across the fields. The villagers said it looked like freedom itself. They admired the farmer's devotion, and they admired the unbreakable bond between man and animal. Years later, when the farmer was old and his children were grown, people still came to him asking about that day, and he told them with the same passion, the same gratitude. He told them about the fear, about the cruelty, and then about the kindness that turned despair into hope. He said, "That day taught me that even the smallest act of compassion can change a life forever, and sometimes even the whole world." The story spread beyond the village, carried by travelers, told in markets and towns, until it reached people who had never seen the farmer, never seen the horse, never even seen the village, but they knew the tale of the man who was saved by kindness, and the stranger who gave without expecting anything back. For the farmer, the horse was no longer just an animal. It was a living reminder of the day he was lifted from despair. Every time he looked into its eyes, he saw the memory of Keanu's hand resting gently on its mane. He saw the moment when justice was restored. He saw the power of kindness, and so the story lived on, not as a tale of wealth or fame, but as a tale of love, justice, and humanity. The farmer never forgot, the villagers never forgot, and the horse remained a symbol of loyalty and survival. And somewhere in the world, Keanu walked on, humble as ever, never seeking praise, but leaving behind a legacy of kindness wherever he went.